Edward Appleton, client-side research from Amy Dennison. Doug Pieper, if I've got the pronunciation correctly, from Mars, the company, not the location. Peter Muster from Philips. So clients are from Europe and are male. Then we have Melanie Courtwright from Research Now, Diane Hessen, groundbreaker from Communispace. So suppliers are female and from North America.
It's about time we had some women up here.
I was thinking exactly that. We need to get everybody a copy of Lean In, I think. So the first question.
Do we need mics?
Probably. Yes, good thinking.
No, the females are keeping them.
So the first question is what do we think those differences are between the perceived needs of clients and suppliers? So we'll ask the suppliers to go first, and then the clients can say whether they're right. So Diane, what do you see as the differences?
You know, I think the biggest difference is, at least in the minds of the clients, I see the clients asking us to listen to them, understand deeply what's going on in their organizations, and do our homework. And I see them experiencing suppliers as doing quite the opposite, as talking, as stalking them, as making them feel that they have to walk into a room like this and take their name tag and turn it around so that they're not absolutely bombarded by people who are just in there saying, you know, I know Philips, you're a great company, I have a few of your products, I'm sure that we can do at least 52 things. So I think there's a huge gap between clients' needs to be understood and what they see suppliers doing. That's one.
And Mel?
Yeah, I think that our core job is to help the clients grow their revenues. At the end of the day, that's our job. And too often, as suppliers, we're focused on growing our own revenues. We have new products and new services, but we don't wrap them up in a bow as to how those products are going to help them grow their revenues. We talk about mobile, but we don't talk about why mobile matters to their revenue. We talk about big data, but we don't talk about how big data matters to getting closer to the consumers and growing their products and services, or protecting their products and services. So I think, I really think that's probably the biggest gap, is just focusing on helping them grow their revenue.
So Peter?
So compliments for these observations, because I feel they are indeed spot on. We do research to support decisions, and we need decisions to grow our revenue. So listening actually means understanding the context of where we do our business, and then knowing how the research add to this and how to do the research properly. So spot on.
I would like to turn it around. I think I see myself as a supplier. I'm a supplier of challenges, and you're my client because you have to deliver solutions. And so therefore, I think this classical supplier-client relation is today more holistic partnership. And okay, we all talk about partnerships, holistic partnerships. I think it's a little bit like an old couple. If you have a longer relationship, you know each other very well. You know the challenges, you know the brands, you know the context and the daily business. And on the other side, what you need, the little extra. So to make sure that even after 10 years, 20 years of old couple, they have some challenges and new inspiration from outside. So coming back to the initial idea to say, okay, that we have me as a supplier of challenges, of new thinkings, of new business challenges we have every day, and having you as an agency or as a partner for me to say, okay, we have what you need, but we have to link as well with others. So I'm a strong believer in very cross-functional networks, and I think agencies today can't deliver the response I need. There must be much more than agency in terms of science connections and others.
I think the biggest challenge is definition of a project, when a project stops for an agency and when a project stops for a client? Because often for agencies, you get the sense that 75% of the effort is going in due diligence, getting it right, hitting the brief. When it's done, you wipe your brow, you think, God, cool, we hit the objectives, done, you finished. Actually, on the client side, it's actually about behavioral change. How do you make that happen? It's buzz. It happened, the project stops for you, it doesn't stop for us. How do you make something happen with the insights? And a lot of corporations are actually not as buzzed up as their market research managers. So you've got to say, what does the voice of a customer mean? How do you help change culture? How do you make your client side voice more powerful, more influential? And that's kind of like where I see maybe there's the business model disconnect. You know, where's your cost going? Where's the added value? If you spend too much money on the not added value stuff, that's understandable. But the real value comes, okay, you think the project's finished. I don't think it is finished.
Now, I want people to jump in as you see fit, but I'm going to start with that point there from Edward, which is it simply down to the contractual nature? Because we've moved towards very micro-detailed proposals. We want you to price this element, this element, this element, this element, and then we say we won't have this element. So we end up with something which is based around the contract and based around a delivery date, as opposed to an ongoing relationship.
I think if you look how other industries structured, if you say, what is a consultant? This is a horrible word, but it's somebody who tries to help you with a business problem. Say, well, what do you want from me? What can you deliver? Do you understand my business? Do you want to understand my business? And what's that worth? And do you want to have a conversation about making that happen? What's it going to take? Because I can't work for you for nothing. Everybody understands that. But if you just get a report, you get a debrief, you get a top line, that's it. That's not really kind of like helping me solve a business problem. And it's not just a couple of phone calls like a day or two later saying, how was it? It's kind of like, are there any deep dives that we need to do? Can we come in? Can we talk to R&D? Can we help you build the action points? So to your point, Ray, I'd say, yes, it is about money, but it's about asking the question, what do you value? Not every client is the same. Maybe DAG's different, maybe you're different, but I would say it's maybe this conversation about what is valuable to you. What do you want? Do you want a quick and dirty? We can do quick and dirty, we know that. Or do you want something which is a little bit richer? Is it worth it? Just ask the questions and try to get beyond commoditization, because that's the big issue.
I think this is I think Edward's issue is really, really important. I'm not sure that I can't remember whether I saw it in the Grit Report or not, but I do think that we all collectively need to get committed to going beyond insight. That the great, profound breakthrough answer is just not enough, especially in 2014. Edward and I were joking about this last night, but you know, he was saying sometimes he'll look at a supplier and say, well, so what's your recommendation? I mean, pick a side. You know, tell me what to do. But I think it's sometimes we're not making recommendations. Sometimes you come up with a profound insight, you're doing great work, and the client literally does not have the bandwidth to implement. Sometimes the client does have the bandwidth and the passion to implement, but senior management is not buying in. Sometimes the insight is completely buried in a big, thick, 90-page document where we've completely missed the ability to kind of make it come to life for the organization, and there's all the cultural change stuff. So I think somewhere in this relationship is a gap related to just helping make sure that we can move from insight to impact.
And it's really urgent. Because in the budget battles, who's winning the budget battles client side? IT has a powerful voice. They sit high up. Data warehousing is a powerful voice. Every company's different, but we need to win the budget battles. We don't want to go flat. We don't want to go negative.
Right, so I'm going to move along a little bit, again taking that though as my lead, and Peter and Doug, what are the non-market research companies adding to the mix? What are you seeing from people elsewhere who are coming along, who are adding something really interesting?
The landscape is changing rapidly, and a small example, shopper research, for instance, although it's not my cup of tea, but I think most of us have heard of the example where rather than observing how people navigate through a store, based on the internet traffic on the routers. You can actually track real life how they navigate through the store, and not just in your store, but nationwide. And initiatives like this are coming from different kind of companies, typically smaller companies outside the classical landscape. And it's all over the place. It's also in terms of online tracking what pops up. So increasingly, we are talking to a long list of smaller suppliers to really do new innovative things. And that's also built a little bit on what Doug says. Client supplier side is a little bit an inappropriate wording, because if you consider it as a partnership, then I believe there are quite a lot of opportunities to develop this partnership, and when you add value by proposing to do new things, yeah, you can bring it to life.
Now, to build on your idea regarding the smaller ones, I totally agree. I think there was a tendency in the last years as well, and me coming more from the consumer piece in R&D and not in marketing, you could see that from the sensory piece, from the sensory marketing piece in the late 90s, a lot of agencies, they just put on their business card, okay, we are experts in sensory marketing. Why? Then some years later, they were all experts in social media. Why? Today, if you look to business cards, they are all doing conference on design thinking because it's fashionable. Why? You're not experts. Sorry, I don't consider you as an expert. And so therefore, I think what's important is, yes, there are some full-service agencies, I agree, but I think these small ones, and this is directly the way which you have seen in the last years, that at the beginning, the big ones were better than the small ones, then the quicker ones, then the slower ones. And today, it's a more creative to less creatives. And I think the Creative Commons, the creative community will make sure that big agencies will struggle in the future, because these small ones are much better. Why? Because they link in interface, they link in networks, they link together with research institutes, with universities. And I'm working with 2 agencies, and they were only spin-offs from universities. They never thought about being there. They don't consider themselves as an agency. They consider themselves as a solution provider. That I like.
So, Melanie, a few moments ago, we had Mark talking about apps and all that sort of area. Lots and lots of the suppliers in that zone are not market research companies, a lot of the developers. What should research companies be doing to integrate into that picture?
So I think first, it's a definition of what is a market research company. Research Now considers itself a market research company, but we're not in the full service insights business. But we are in the data interpretation business. We found when we moved into big data and when we moved into mobile behavioral data that we couldn't hand our clients raw data sets. They have an allergy to a raw data set. And so we had to make the data consumable. In order to make the data consumable for you guys, then we had to start translating it and putting it into some form that delivered insights that lead to impact. So I think that's the key, though, is we're all a market research agency at the end of the day. Everyone in this room is involved in the market research space in some form or fashion, and we're all responsible for making data consumable. And once you get good at that, then you move up the value chain.
Perhaps quickly
to
build on this, I think it's an interesting point, and that's something where I struggle as well in partnering with agencies. Looking, as you say, we are interpreting the data. If you look to the NLP approach, what is your filter? I think that's very important. You get 3-4 different persons giving the same data set, squeezing the same data, same statistics, and you get 4 different recommendations. So how can we make sure that we align on filters about what is really important and relevant?
So, okay, I'm going to go to the 3 clients now, and I'm going to make a statement which you can then disagree with, or you can answer the question that goes with it, which is that the market research industry is shaped by clients. 60% of the industry are the big 8 suppliers. That is because that's who you buy from. What can clients do to change this industry so the suppliers meet your needs better, choosing to reinterpret supplier and buyer as you see fit, Doug? But what can clients do to make a difference?
It starts very small. What we can do is take every study as an opportunity to experiment and do things differently.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
I think we need to step up to the plate internally and punch above our weight internally and move out of this image of a dusty, analytical, spectacled academic type and become more of a business professional and try to win more budget battles and to say insights is not going to be overridden by analytics or technology. It's actually the brother and sister at R&D and marketing. We have a collaborative role and a very contextual role to play. And we need to bring it to life in a different way and move away from a legacy image, which is like lots and lots and lots of data, which goes into the drawer quite quickly. And people say, well, why did we spend all that money on that research? What real value did it do? How long did it take? 4 months? Those days are going to be behind us. So how are we going to make it different? And I think technology has a huge role, visualization has a huge role, storytelling, influence, leadership skills, if you like. It sounds like a big word, but stepping up into the plate internally and looking ourselves in the mirror and using these protean mirrors. I'd like one of those mirrors where I can walk tall. I haven't got one. I'd love to have one. So we can punch up and put some boxing in there so we can punch above our weight and we feel tall. And I'll sit up straight at the same time.
Yeah, I will be short. I think what I see is really to put the consumer back into the center of interest. Because I think we really moved, and I not only talk for my company, but I talk for others as well. We are so much relying on mean scores, on 90 pages PowerPoint, like you said, and I hope there's no one from Microsoft here. I am really allergic to PowerPoint now, and I'm training my team to avoid PowerPoint where it's possible, and just use something like Visually or something like this to really make sure that you give impact, to show what's really consumers' life, what's really the situation, and really get fed up with PowerPoint, get fed up with mean scores, go back to what consumer reality is all about. Then you can sell it in the business much easier.
I read a report by Gartner, Ray, which said that 50% of companies say tick the box strategic commitment to VOC, but only 10% had actually got to the operational stage. So I totally agree with that. It's saying what's walking the walk about saying the consumer drives our business. We should all be like Jeff Bezos. We should have a stool there saying who should be sitting here as the consumer. These people live that. And a lot of companies are kind of like saying, yeah, we live that too. Really? Take a look at what's happening on the ground. And we need to be part of that because that's our destiny.
So, Diane, what can we do other than insight communities, which is clearly one very strong method that we would both believe in, but what can agencies do to bridge this gap that we're hearing? We might like clients to behave differently, but let's assume they won't behave differently. What can we do differently?
Well, I think one thing that we can do is to be really clear about what we are great at and what we can't do. I mean, it's really incredible what happens when you look at an important client and say, you know what, that sounds like it's really important for you to do, and we can't really help you there. I think clients really appreciate that. And of course, if you can say, and I know someone who can help you, I think that's also it. I think the second thing that we can do is to just be honest and direct about what we need. You know, my pet peeve from clients is that we really need our clients to help us understand their business and connect with other people in the organization. And some clients will say, I've got 4 people that you need to interview. And read this report and take a look at this. And by the way, here are some other things that we've gotten from our research partners. Sign an NDA because it can't go out of the organization. There are other clients that are afraid to do that. They want to keep the information to themselves, and so it inhibits our ability to really understand the organization because we can't get beyond the client's office. I don't know what you would have to say about that, but that would be my pick.
Well, one
for
thing
what to do differently.
I love that, but sometimes the danger is when you give people information, they think that you want to parrot back to them what you've already heard, repeat, repeat, repeat. And I say, no, challenge me. Tell me I'm wrong. And don't just read it through. I've done that a few times. I've given people the reports, and then they mimic the reports. And I think, no, I'm not giving this for you just to repeat it. I want your thinking power. Help me think. And by the way, don't be afraid. Don't sort of like count the beans too much. It's actually feel what's in the bean kind of thing, if you know what I mean. we need to move away from this kind of like worried, there's a downside risk, there's a lot of upside, and we need to grab it more.
So Melanie.
Yeah, one of the things in the GRIT report I was most surprised about was the disconnect between suppliers and clients on mobile. So I think one of the things we need to do as suppliers is be really transparent with you about why mobile is really important. We need to get you very familiar with that mobile's where the respondents are. We're not creating mobile because it's new and it's cool. We're creating mobile because if we don't go to mobile, we lose the respondents. So I don't know if you're aware that half of our traffic is on mobile devices now. And so we're not saying that it has to be app-based and maybe we want to slow down and you want to think more about behavioral, but mobile surveys are on mobile devices every day now and the surveys aren't ready for it. So we have to get you guys more aware of where the respondents are, truly close to them, what they're doing with their devices, and help you understand that the decisions aren't just about increasing our revenue, they're about keeping our respondents.
I'm going to jump in and I'm going to let one or two other people, but when I read that in the GRIT report, my conclusion was slightly different, that sometimes I will arrange for somebody to drive me from where I live to, say, Heathrow Airport, about three-hour drive, and I am really not interested in whether it's a petrol or diesel. I'm not interested in whether it's a manual or an automatic car. I want that person driving it to have made the right decision. I'm really interested in, am I going to get there on time? Do they know about the traffic concerns? So I think we have an inherent difference between the suppliers. We have to worry about the method. We have to get the method right. Clients shouldn't have to. They should have to worry about picking the right people, and the people will solve that piece.
But
maybe.
if on our journey to the airport we say we need to stop at the diesel stand, and they say, no, I want you to stop at the non-diesel stand, then we're getting in each other's ways, and I don't think they understand how much of our traffic is mobile these days and what that means to the survey instruments.
I like the example of your statement of our servers are not ready to go live onto the mobile platform. Yes, obviously everyone here is aware that the traffic is on mobile. My key takeout from the GRIT report, and that was really an eye-opener for me, is that almost half of the audience doubts the quality of what we do. That's shocking, because that's really the fundamental of what we do, and we doubt the quality of our work. So mobile provides a new way of engaging with consumers and get more meaningful feedback. But you have to help us, because our surveys are typically way too long and way too detailed, but we are afraid of giving away what we know. We have to benchmark our decisions with what we did in the past. So this is really an area where you need to pave the way and help us on converting from longer surveys to shorter and maybe on a larger scale on a mobile platform.
Yeah, and I think I'm setting the stage well for Paul McDonald coming up soon, talking about chunking. I've done some chunking work in the past, and I just think that we have to have longer conversations, and it needs to be about the why, not about how cool the mode is. You need to understand it's about pain points for you, pain points for us, and we need to be solving pain points and being solutions focused, and not about our revenue, but about the respondents.
Now we have time for one question from the floor, which is actually to do with the fact that you'll get 5 answers. So it takes up a fair amount of the time. So, do we have a hand? I think that's somebody stretching over here. They nearly got sold the ticket there. Do we have a question? Yes, in the back right over there.
How do you even see it?
Yeah, if you keep your hand up, that's great. If you tell us your name and company and...
Pippa Bailey, MMR Research Worldwide. My question is that, well, it's not really a question, but we're often challenged to come up with new and innovative ways of, I suppose, approaching our clients' challenges. And we spend a lot of time trying to think of the best ways to address those. But there's a lot of nervousness in adopting new ways. So often we'll do something different, suggest something different, and it's like, we really, really liked it, but we're going to do what we did last time. Is that real, do you think?
So clients, does that ring a bell with you, where you like it but you don't choose it, you go safe?
Well, we've all read Daniel Kahneman, haven't we? We all know about risk aversion and habitualization and laziness, and et cetera, so of course it makes sense. So it's about behavioral change and what you need to do to sort of like identify the triggers, to find new behavioral mechanisms, and to make it pain-free, and to take the risk out of it, because many of us think, oh Jesus, I'm going to screw up. And if somebody says, why the hell, if you change that, why were we doing it then? So you have to manage the legacy sensibly, saying, well, the past was good, now we have better, the past was not bad. And it's this switch moment where you say, okay, KPIs we've been using historically are rubbish. What does that mean? What are the new KPIs? How do I measure emotion? Whatever you want to take, it's kind of like a tricky topic. And I totally hear the question, and it's frustrating. I'll be interested to see what Dag says to that.
Yeah, to build on this, I would say I like the idea about new things. So what I'm doing with the agencies I'm working with, we have creative monthlies or creative quarterlies, where they present some new stuff. We say, okay, I did see this, I did read an article there, I got something on Twitter there, I see something in the conference there. So let's put it together and we create something together. I think it's much stronger than an agency coming to me and telling me, okay, Dag, here's my new tool, I love it. It's very different from the others, it's much better than what the others have. It's difficult to get trust in it. But if you co-create, it's not only co-creating with consumers, it's co-creating with agencies as well. This is what I like, because when we put all the different competencies together, one guy from psychology, one guy from neuroscience, one guy from business, and say, okay, this is something we can test. Then we make smaller test cases and say, how does it work, what's the value, and then we try to get it into the KPIs, best practices again, to say, okay, there's some fresh blood, and it's a complete different way to get some new insights or new value as well.
Yeah, agree on what Dag is saying. Doing things differently means learning together, but then talking about the partnership, it also implies that you share the risks. So I've had agencies approaching me with new methodologies and then basically ask me to pay the full Mountie. Yeah, sorry, but that doesn't work because then typically we are extremely risk averse and we close the door.
Yeah, I would throw in two tips there actually, just to come in the mix. One is that one of the places where you suggest your innovative ideas is when you as an agency don't expect to win. You're not the incumbent, you've been asked to make up the numbers. Actually, that's a time to be really brave. And the second one is when you're working with a regular client, is to say, I'm glad we've won that project. Can we do this bit extra? Yeah, at our shared expense or even at our expense because we've won the project. So we'd like to take 10% of the sample and do it this little way differently. We might want to use an app for it. We might want to make it in the moment. And we'd say, let's just be a little bit risk averse. We'll take a project we've won and let's add a new dimension to it. Diane?
I think some clients are just more adventurous than others.
Yes.
And I don't think it's bad to be conservative. I mean, we don't all need to be Kyle wherever you are. You know, I'm kind of laughing because when Melanie was talking before about, well, it's not a market research company. I remember when we first came into the space, which was 13 years ago, I would get up at conferences and people would go, well, you're not market research or whatever. And now, in retrospect, I realize that it didn't matter. But I do think that there are clients who, because of their company, because of their headset, and because of the particular situation that they're operating in, just feel like there's a moment to be more adventurous. And those are, you know, when you have a new idea as a supplier, those are the people who you're looking for, who are going to be okay if it doesn't work. And I think you all have times when you're absolutely willing to take the risk. I think the problem on the supplier side, though, is that, and I don't know if this is also that way on the client side, but I think we come up with our tool or our methodology independent of the need. So if I were a client, I would never say, okay, you know, come on and give me something new. Oh, there's eye tracking. There's virtual reality. There's mobile ethnography or whatever, because it's not connected to anything. So I think what's adventurous for clients is to say, look, We as an organization are trying to completely transform our customer experience. Come in with your, I'm going to call 5 suppliers, come in with your best, most adventurous ideas, but connect it to the goal that I have. And I think then there are moments when clients will say, well, I think I'd like to go on that adventure because you really understand what the need is. And sometimes clients say no to things because you're just coming out with some cool tool and it's not connected to any problem they're trying to solve.
Super. Now, we will just run quickly down the line, starting with Edward, just your 10, 20-second closing thoughts on what you'd like to see happening.
Yeah, identifying moments where we can experiment, testing new things within a risk control context, and moving away from a sense of, yeah, it's got to be perfect, it's got to be right, we're all academics. I say, no, we have to stretch it towards creativity and strategic thinking.
I have a dream that I would like to merge communities. I would like to merge the Sensi consumer science community. I would like to merge the market research community and the trend community, because these guys are all publishing different papers at all different conferences, and I joined many of them. We all talk about the consumer, but we don't talk to each other. And what I will organize, and I'm happy to take your ideas, I will organize next year a flop conference where we talk about flops, everything what went wrong in your company, and if you want to join, please talk to me.
My final comments is that thinking about partnerships and the landscape that's changing, yes, different companies, smaller companies, maybe they are maybe more innovative, but when it comes to skill and when it comes to truly understanding consumer behavior, the suppliers still have a competitive advantage. So please use it.
Yeah, I think we're all saying the same thing. We need to spend less time selling to each other and more time sharing with each other, understanding the problems that you're trying to solve and solving them with the technology as opposed to just selling the technology.
What I've learned from clients is I don't think that the future is just about new tools and new methodologies. I think the future is also about the change in the relationship between companies and their consumers. That we are moving from respondents, consumers as respondents, and data points to consumers as collaborators and partners. And there's so much opportunity just in that, that I think there's an interesting dialogue to be had that just transcends the new cool tools.
Yeah, if I stay closer to the consumer, you're going to want to stay closer to me.
Absolutely. So please, a big hand of applause for our panel.